Chapter 551. Freedom. The appearance of the fire caused Su Ming's pupils to constrict. Right before his eyes, as Feng continued roaring in his unwillingness to admit defeat, and madness filled his entire heart, and as flames appeared on his body, they started burning stronger. They increased in volume until they eventually covered his entire body. I am the fire berserker. I am the only fire berserker in this world. I am the most devout to the fire berserker in this world. Feng shouted. As more flames appeared on his body, the feeling that he was in control of fire appeared in his heart once more. Moreover, once the flames on his body appeared, a wave of heat that was even stronger than before started spreading through the area, as if it wanted to melt everything. Su Ming watched Feng, and a brilliant light gradually appeared in his eyes. This is a sign of life. It might not be the presence of life cultivation, but it is born due to great willpower, and it is a power that can tamper the forces in the world so that Feng can control his own fate. Due to his obsession with fire, his will fused with it, and that's why he can control it. The fire on Feng's body no longer belongs to the fire berserker that came from the line of the third god of berserkers. It belongs to Feng himself. Understanding dawned on Su Ming as he looked at Feng. The realization that life matrix might possibly have an incredibly huge connection to willpower suddenly came upon him like a light suddenly shining in darkness. Su Ming did not interrupt Feng's transformation. He wanted to gain an even greater epiphany from him. At that moment, as the flames on Feng's body surged into the sky, the world became much hotter. After a moment, he opened his eyes and lifted his head to roar at the sky before he charged towards Su Ming. I am the fire berserker. With a low roar, he closed in on Su Ming. A wave of hot air crashed into his face and he clenched his right hand into a fist before hurling it towards Su Ming. That punch contained all the power of fire in Feng's body, and for the first time in his life, Feng managed to truly have total control over his own fire. Flames charged out of his fist, turning into a fire wolf that closed in on Su Ming with a roar. Su Ming did not retreat. Instead, he too lifted his right hand, but his fist did not contain any flames, only the power of the berserker bones in his body, along with a hint of the presence of life cultivation. A loud boom that shook the sky rang in the air. Feng coughed up blood, and the fire wolf shattered into mere embers. Feng was sent tumbling back nearly 1,000 feet, and when he coughed up blood again, he looked even more crazed than before. I offer my life to the flames of the world and am willing to become the servant of fire. Please grant the power of fire. Give me even stronger flames. Feng roared loudly, and the flames on his body exploded once again, burning even stronger than before. However, his body also started showing signs of being destroyed by this blast of even stronger flames. His flesh and blood began drying up, as if they could no longer withstand the fire, and a large amount of his blood evaporated, turning into red fog that left his body. His eyes turned a crimson red, his madness growing even greater. I am the fire berserker. I am the fire berserker. These were the words he kept repeating. Once he turned into flames again, Feng roared and rushed towards Su Ming once more. The instant he closed in, Su Ming lifted his right hand calmly and threw a punch again. That punch sent Feng back, just as it did last time. It also made the flames on his body become duller, made him cough up a large amount of blood, and even made his right arm explode and shatter. But Su Ming was also forced to take a step back. What powerful will! A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he watched Feng. That man was, at that moment, completely overcome by his madness, and as he was sent backwards, he roared, and the flames on his body rose once again. This is a condition where he lost his rationale after being overcome by his madness. In this condition, he obtained his own fire, or perhaps more accurately, he obtained his own life. Everyone has their own life matrix, and every single one of them is different. Could it be that going through this sort of transformation is necessary to understand what life matrix truly means and to arrive in the realm of life cultivation? Will I have to go through what is currently happening to Feng now? Su Ming looked at Feng and a long string of thoughts went through his head. The man before him now had opened up a huge gate for Su Ming's thoughts and allowed him to understand many things. Feng's retreat caused him to stand in the sky. As he roared again, the flames on his body increased explosively once more, and at that instant, his legs broke down and shattered into pieces, burnt to ashes. However, he did not know pain. Instead, in his madness, he continued desiring even stronger flames. And he received them. The flames around his body were so hot that even the sky looked as if it could no longer withstand them and was churning about as if it was melting. The instant those flames reached their strongest state, Feng looked towards Su Ming, and with his remaining left arm, he flew towards him and hurled his fist forward. D! Feng shouted furiously. When he threw his punch forward, Su Ming narrowed his eyes and clenched his right hand into a fist again before ramming straight against Feng's punch. A loud bang that bellowed in the skies reverberated through the air. Su Ming was forced several steps back and the qi within his body churned. As for Feng, he no longer had any blood in his body. As he fell backwards, his left arm exploded, leaving him with only half his body remaining. The moment his body touched the sky, he let out the strongest roar in his life. I offer my soul to the flames of the world. Give me even stronger flames. The instant these words escaped his mouth, white flames appeared on his body, and when that happened, Feng's body started rapidly burning away. He glared at Su Ming. Su Ming, I am the true fire berserker. These were his final words, because when he finished saying them, only his head remained, and the flesh and blood on it were rapidly turning to ashes. As the white flames burned, his life and his soul disappeared without a trace in an instant. As the white flames continued burning, they exploded abruptly, and the sky finally crumbled under that explosion. A gigantic hole leading straight to the fifth layer appeared. Those flames swept through the fifth layer, and shrill screams of pain traveled through the hole there. The members of the tribe they had already made preparations and were ready to fight for their freedom, but they all turned into the sacrifices for the white sea of fire, and as the flames spread out, the people disappeared without a trace. You are the fire berserker. Su Ming stood there and closed his eyes, only reopening them after a long time had passed. Understanding could be seen in his eyes. Feng died, but he did not die by Su Ming's hands. He died from the sea of fire. Because he did not lack fire in his life. His life matrix could not contain too much fire. That was why he could not withstand the pinnacle of fire. If he absorbed it forcefully, he would only die. The path to life cultivation is dangerous, and each step taken is an enigma shrouded in great mystery. In silence, Su Ming walked towards the fifth layer. Right up till his death, Feng did not understand why he would be burnt by his own flames. Only Su Ming had been able to see through some part of it and understand a little of what was happening, and the epiphany he had gained served as an experience for him towards the path of life cultivation. Feng didn't know what life cultivation is. Perhaps there are people who are already practicing life cultivation in this world, but there aren't many of them. There must also be quite a number of those in the Berserker Soul realm who have tried to break into that realm, but had died in this way. Because a lead is missing. They are lacking the lead for them to step into life cultivation from the Berserker Soul realm. If they want to find that lead, then they must understand what life matrix is, and from there, truly step into that realm. Feng unknowingly found that lead, and it due to his madness, but in the end, he died because of his madness. Then, what would my lead be? He sank into madness due to his obsession. In silence, Su Ming stepped into the fifth layer. The flames in there had already disappeared, but there were thick and dense smoke clouds in the air. The ground was charred. There were no mountains in this layer, and smoke filled the sky. No sign of life could be found here. Once Su Ming swept his gaze across the area, he looked towards the sky. He lifted his right hand, and the violet armor appeared on his body once again. The Undertaker's of Evil spear appeared in his hand, and a hint of the presence of life cultivation surrounded the spear. This was the strongest power Su Ming could muster before he turned into destiny. With the long spear in hand, Su Ming took a step towards the sky. Then, like a long violet arc, he charged upwards with a loud howl and thrust the spear forward. All of Su Ming's power erupted from his body when he thrust forward, and the wind of the Wind Berserker stirred in the air. The power of the Lightning Berserker burst forth as well, and as lightning rumbled in the sky, that hint of the presence of life cultivation also fused with the spear, causing the sky to start trembling the instant the spear touched it while slicing through the air with a howl. The instant a large crack appeared, Su Ming moved his feet and stepped into the crack. The sixth layer. The moment Su Ming stepped there, a light immediately shone in his eyes. He saw thousands of people kneeling on the sixth layer's ground, as if they were waiting for his arrival. The person in the lead was an old man. He had an incredibly long braid behind his head that he had wrapped around his body. The old man knelt on the ground silently, and all the members of his tribe behind him possessed incredibly long hair as well. This was Phantom Deus tribe. Su Ming had seen the old man before in the past. It was the tribe leader of Phantom Deus tribe. The seventh layer is the Southern Frontier tribe under Freezing Sky's jurisdiction. This tribe defended the southern front, and there are 500 people in that tribe, but even if there are only 500 of them, they are one of the sharp blades of the great tribe of Freezing Sky. The eighth layer is where the great tribe of Freezing Sky is located. Over the years, not a single piece of news had come from there. It's as if they had been cut off from us. The ninth layer is Sai Ma Xin's isolation grounds. The tribe leader of Phantom Deus lifted his head and looked at Su Ming calmly as he spoke slowly. Su Ming did not speak. Once he sized up the old man, he looked towards the other members of Phantom Deus tribe. All of them were kneeling on the ground silently, and their faces were filled with apathy. Su Ming, we, the Phantom Deus tribe, would like to offer a deal with you. I can tell you where Lei Chen is, and we can even give you the Phantom lead to help you search for our next Phantom equal. With this item, you can sense Lei Chen's whereabouts and find him. You don't need to give up too much. We only ask for your left arm. The old Phantom Deus tribe leader spoke in a low voice. You can also choose not to agree to this, but without our art, you will not be able to obtain the Phantom lead. I don't want to participate in this feud between you and Sai Ma Xin. We only want freedom. Please, give us our freedom. The old man's expression was a little complicated. He knelt there and kowtowed towards Su Ming. All the Phantom Deus tribe members behind him did the same. Among them were the elderly, women, and children. A hint of desire towards freedom lay within their apathetic expressions, and the children were looking at Su Ming with fear in their eyes. All of these things, along with the entire Phantom Deus tribe kowtowing towards him, made Su Ming's words die in his mouth. Chapter 552. Sai Ma Xin. The choice each tribe made was different. Once Shepherd Tower tribe realized they could not obtain Su Ming's arm, they gave up, and their elder chose to use his life in exchange for the possibility of obtaining freedom for his tribe. Blood Absconsion tribe's staunch and unyielding attitude made them choose to sacrifice their own lives. With their sacrifice and their control over their own deaths, they showed their struggle towards fate and delivered Su Ming a serendipitous event so that the small remnant of their tribe members in the world outside could perhaps continue their tribe's line. Phantom Deus tribe had chosen to make this sort of trade. With their entire tribe's lives on the line, they pleaded to Su Ming while kneeling on the ground in hopes of obtaining his arm. They did not want to think about whether it was possible for Su Ming to kill Sai Ma Xin. They were afraid that even if Sai Ma Xin died, he would still be capable of killing the people who had his seed planted within them. They were even more afraid of Su Ming dying in Sai Ma Xin's hands, because that would mean that a worse fate would fall on Phantom Deus tribe. They only wanted freedom, and by Sai Ma Xin's orders, they could only obtain it with Su Ming's limbs. As Su Ming looked at the Phantom Deus tribe, he was reminded of his second senior brother. He was silent. The tribe leader mentioning that he knew Lei Chen's whereabouts had also brought about great shock to him. You have to obtain freedom with your own hands. Only then will you be truly free. A long time passed by before Su Ming spoke up calmly. Please grant our wish. We only desire freedom. We. Full of anguish, the tribe leader of Phantom Deus tribe looked towards Su Ming. He knew that this request was too much, but he could not think of a better method to go about this. Su Ming ignored Phantom Deus tribe. If they did not attack, then he would not kill them. He walked towards the sky, and as he lifted his right hand, the long spear in his hand started shining with a violet light. Sir! The tribe leader of Phantom Deus tribe stood up and cried out after Su Ming. Tears fell down from his eyes, and sorrow appeared on his face. Please pity the children in my tribe. They're still young, but they already have Xianxia Xin's berserker threads in their bodies. They don't have a future, and we do not have any other tribe members in the world outside. We're all here, and we will die or live our lives as if we are already dead. Please, help us. We will never forget your kindness to us. Sir, we had a conflict with you many years ago, but this is all in the past. We only have this many people now, we can choose not to leave, but I wish for our children and our youngsters to obtain freedom so that Phantom Deus tribe can continue growing. The voice of the tribe leader of Phantom Deus was filled with grief as he pleaded pitifully. He kowtowed again and again towards Su Ming. All the Phantom Deus tribe members behind him began bowing towards him in silence again, and the sounds of their heads hitting the ground rang in the air non-stop. The children's cries traveled into the air. The elderly cried. The women started weeping softly as well. Su Ming froze for a moment in midair before he continued walking towards the sky. The violet light on the spear in his hand grew even stronger, and the killing intent he harbored towards Xianxia Xin glowed even stronger in his eyes. The game Xianxia Xin spoke of made Su Ming endure a trial of his humanity, forcing him into situations where he could neither kill the people, nor choose not to kill them. Sometimes, making a choice is difficult, but it is even more difficult to make that decision when no other choice is present. When the tribe leader saw Su Ming lifting the long spear in his right hand, about to stab the sky in the 6th layer, his cries of despair reverberated in the air, and each word he spoke was filled with tears of blood. Sir, the 6th layer is unlike the other layers beneath us. Xianxia Xin has placed the control over our lives in the sky. If the sky shatters, then we will all die immediately. All of us, all my tribe members will die right before your eyes the moment you break this sky. This is our fate. Su Ming remained silent. The tip of his spear had already touched the sky's barrier, and the hint of presence of life cultivation had fused into the sky's barrier. He sensed the connection tying all the lives of those in Phantom Deus tribe to the sky. It was just as the tribe leader said. Once this sky was destroyed, all these people would die. Xianxia Xin, you tried to tear into my heart with Baisu in the past so that you could plant your berserker seed in me. Now, you changed your method. You prepared all the things in Heaven Gate to make me hesitate so that you can achieve the results you wanted in the past. Su Ming closed his eyes, then after that brief moment of pause, the long spear in his hand stabbed the sky. The rumble stirred by that thrust shook the sky and earth, causing fine cracks to appear in the sky. Once these cracks connected with each other, they turned into fragments that erupted with a loud bang at the tip of Su Ming's spear. Sometimes, death is a form of freedom. Su Ming closed his eyes, and beneath him, all the kneeling Phantom Deus tribe members trembled and exploded as the sky was ripped apart. A large amount of red threads tore through their skins, and as these people died, those red threads gathered in midair to turn into an indistinct figure. That figure looked somewhat similar to Xianxia Xin. He looked at Su Ming and suddenly started laughing loudly. His laughter was soft and velvety, causing those who heard it feel incredibly uncomfortable. As expected, you and I are the same type of people. I originally intended to give these people what they so desired according to what I promised if you really gave them your arm, but that freedom would be death. Because I, too, sometimes think that death is freedom. You're good. You're so good. I'll be waiting for you in the 9th layer. There are still 2 layers to go. You'd best hurry, or else you'll have to face the same choice when you meet Baisu. I'd like to see what your choice would be at that time. When those words were said, the indistinct figure that was formed by the blood threads fell apart and scattered, turning into a puddle of blood spilled on the ground. Killing intent shone in Su Ming's eyes. At that moment, the desire to kill Xianxia Xin turned into a powerful existence burning within him. He quietly turned around and stepped towards the 7th layer. A great battle unfolded in the 7th layer, and it was a long string of killings that did not stop. All of this was because of one single phrase echoing in the air, uttered by Xianxia Xin the instant Su Ming arrived at the 7th layer. If he reaches the 8th layer, then all of you will die. The string of killings unfolded at that moment. No words were exchanged between them. There were only ragged breathing and an endless amount of divine abilities flying in the air. Su Ming could sense a wave of murderous aura and cold callousness from the 500 berserkers around him. None of them were ordinary people. All of them possessed outstanding power and had with them a vast experience of battle. They were freezing sky's sharp blades, the people who defended the southern frontier. They did not fight for their freedom. They were only fighting so that they could die in battle. They would either kill or be killed. Dying in the hands of a powerful warrior was to them the highest form of glory in their lives. Su Ming looked at them. As he lifted his right hand, the long spear howled, and he swept past the area at high speed. Wherever he went, slaughter would fill the air. These people did not resist. They only used their full power and fought with their divine abilities. Some of them even chose to self-destruct when they were injured. The murderous aura from these 500 people surged into the sky, causing Su Ming to fall silent in its face as well. Eventually, he closed his eyes, and the armor on his body turned into an endless amount of violet threads. These threads shot out in all directions, but not a single scream of pain could be heard. The only things he saw were quiet smiles and absent-minded looks on their faces that said they had been freed. Su Ming did not know how much time had passed. Perhaps it had been the span of half an incense stick, perhaps it was longer. When the roars and sounds of battle disappeared from around him and a sticky substance was all over the ground, he opened his eyes. The violet threads returned to him. Once they turned into the armor on his body, only one person remained before him. That person was shivering, but he was gritting his teeth so that he would not fall. It was an old man. His head was filled with white hair, and blood trickled down the corners of his mouth. He looked at Su Ming, and no hate could be found on his face. There was instead only a smile on his lips. "Kill me. Don't let me die in the hands of that brat Sai Ma Xin's despicable berserker threads. I am Xianxia. Use that spear of yours which can absorb souls and take my soul with you. Turn me into a battle soul and will let me help you in your fight against Sai Ma Xin." The old man's voice was like thunder. As it rumbled in the air, respect appeared on Su Ming's face. He swung the spear in his right hand, and when he walked past the old man, he took his soul away. He held the long spear in his hand, and there were now 500 incredibly distinct battle souls surrounding his undertakers of evil spear. They did not let out any shrill screams, and only silence could be found on them, along with a frightening murderous aura that erupted from them. They accompanied Su Ming, rushing towards the sky that led to the 8th layer's world, and crashed into it. A loud bang that shook the sky reverberated in the air, and a crack tore through the 7th layer's sky. Su Ming rushed forward and turned into a violet figure. Then, with the 500 souls, he rushed into the 8th layer. Heaven Gate's 8th layer. The world where the great tribe of Freezing Sky was located. But the instant Su Ming stepped into the 8th layer, his pupils constricted abruptly. This was a desolate world, a world that had no signs of life. The sky here was gray, and even the ground was like that. All the people here were also gray. Their eyes were gray, and so were their broken bodies. All the gray-eyed people were beings that had lost their signs of life in this world. Perhaps they could no longer even be called people. In Su Ming's field of vision, the entire region that belonged to the great tribe of Freezing Sky were just ruins. Within them were an innumerable amount of corpses. Though more accurately speaking, they were not exactly corpses, for their eyes were open and gray. They did not breathe, and no signs of power could be felt from their bodies. In this quiet world, everything Su Ming saw was filled with a strange air. Among the bodies were men and women, the elderly and the young, and all of them were lying on the ground quietly, as if they were sleeping. All of them had also another similarity: they did not have left hands. All of their left hands were gone. There was a large, cone-shaped stone in the gray sky. The stone stage was very large and wide, and there was a person sitting on it. When that person saw Su Ming, a sinister smile appeared on his lips. Perhaps that cone-shaped stone platform was Heaven Gate's 9th layer, because Su Ming could recognize the person sitting there with a single glance. He was Sai Ma Xin. Chapter 553. Gamble. He was dressed in long white robes and had long hair that spilled down his shoulders. Sai Ma Xin sat on the stone platform and looked at Su Ming. His handsome face was extremely attractive, and there was also an expression on him that spoke of a composure that would not be shaken even if the world crumbled. In fact, His smile held that same calmness within it. However, his level of cultivation seemed to only be at the initial stage of the Berserker Soul realm. He was looking at Su Ming, and even though he might be smiling, there was a hint of coldness and ruthlessness in his eyes. He lifted his right hand, twirled a lock of his hair, and his gaze turned even colder. Su Ming, I often imagined the day we met each other again, Sima Xin said with a smile. His voice was even softer and darker. As it reverberated in the air, it caused a layer of ripples to appear in the world, which started spreading through the area around them. The moment his words traveled forward, a glint suddenly appeared in his eyes, and his body strangely turned invisible in an instant. A finger filled with murderous intent stretched out from the air and touched the center of Sima Xin's brows. However, that finger merely phased through his invisible body. When Su Ming walked out from the air, he lifted his head coldly. Sima Xin's body materialized in the sky before his eyes. You are still the same as before. You attack ruthlessly and without hesitation. But I am no longer as I was in the past. Sima Xin looked at Su Ming and shook his head as he chuckled. He lifted his right hand and swung it forward, and distortions immediately appeared in the sky. As the sky twisted, a scene gradually revealed itself, and the instant Su Ming saw that scene, he fell silent. That scene was of an ancient world located in some unknown place. He saw Bai Su sitting on the ground, and he also saw an old man sitting cross-legged behind her. The old man looked pale and miserable. He would occasionally open his eyes, and sorrow as well as dead stillness could be seen within them. Bai Su's face was stark pale, but she continued standing before the old man resolutely. She did not look that much different from before, but the naivety and innocence in the past could no longer be seen on her face. In its place were determination and resolution. There was a frightening scar on her that ran through her entire face, startling to the eye. She stood quietly and held a long black sword in her hand. Before her was an endless wave of gray-eyed living dead who no longer possessed their left arms. These people moved forward slowly as they howled, and if anyone cast their eyes into the distance, they would find that there was no end to these living dead. The ground was trembling further down ahead, and several giants hundreds of feet tall were running towards where Bai Su was. As they ran, they were swinging their arms and occasionally seizing the living dead, blocking their path before placing them into their mouths and eating them. Their brutal eyes were trained on where Bai Su was located, and they were all charging towards her. Don't worry. She won't die in a short period of time. Over the years, I only left that scar on her face. Otherwise, I didn't harm even a single hair on her body, Sima Xin said in that soft, dark voice of his while standing in mid-air. I just can't accept it. I can't accept losing to you all those years ago. Do you know how much I suffered in freezing Sky Cave? All of this is because of you. Sima Xin looked at Su Ming, and intense hatred was laced through his words. Su Ming averted his gaze from the distorted screen of light and looked towards Sima Xin. Are you done talking? He looked as calm as ever, and his body disappeared in an instant. When he reappeared, he was already standing beside Sima Xin. As he lifted his right hand, lightning sparks howled and exploded on his arm. The lightning's collapse turned into an endless wave of lightning sparks that swam about to completely surround Sima Xin, causing him to shatter with a bang. Su Ming frowned. The instant he did so, Sima Xin's voice traveled forth from the ground once again, and one among the endless sea of grey corpses started turning into Sima Xin as his face melted. He sat up and smiled towards Su Ming in the sky. I'm not done yet. Su Ming, I lost completely the first time we fought against each other. Now, we fight again. Sima Xin stared at Su Ming, and a strange smile appeared on his lips. The power within his new self was much stronger, and by the looks of it, he had already reached the peak of the initial stage of the Berserker Soul realm. Our gambling chip will be by Su and her father, your servant Zi Che, all the people still alive in Heaven Gate. Oh, and also your senior brother Hu Zi. Let's make a bet and see who among the two of us is stronger after the passage of these 20 years. Sima Xin's words suddenly grew in volume, and his voice rumbled in the air. The whole world shook because of his voice, and the endless amount of grey-eyed corpses lying on the ground started rising themselves with brilliant grey lights shining in their eyes.
Come?
You're late to this fight by 20 years. As Sima Xin laughed, He charged straight towards the sky. Su Ming's pupils constricted. Almost the moment Sai Marsh enclosed in on him, violet light shone on his entire body. He lifted the Undertaker's of Evil spear in his hand and threw it towards the incoming Sai Marshin. At the same time, he turned into a long arc in the sky, and along with his long spear, they charged forward. The instant both sides clashed into each other, a loud bang surged into the skies. Su Ming took a step backwards. His eyes shone with a cold glare, and Sai Marshin's incoming body was torn to shreds, pierced through by the long spear. However, almost the instant he died, two grey corpses on the ground let out a long string of laughter and sat up, turning into Sai Marshin. They were no longer in the initial stage of the Berserker Soul Realm, but were both in the middle stage of that realm. In a moment, they flew up and rushed towards Su Ming. He spread his divine sense outwards, and with a brief scan, his expression turned dark. He could not tell which of the two Sai Marshins were real. Both of them seemed as if they were his original body. The great completion in the great art of heartless Berserker Seed will turn everything in the world into me. Su Ming, if you can't even break my great art of heartless Berserker Seed, you will make me really disappointed. You talk too much, Su Ming retorted flatly and lifted his right hand. Violet light surrounded his body, and the long spear appeared in his hand once again. Then, as if the spear had gathered all the violet light, the armor disappeared and the 500 battle souls on the Undertaker's of Evil spear in his hands started materializing as if they were gaining physical form. In the midst of their silence, they looked towards Sai Marshin with ruthlessness and murderous intent. A sharp piercing howl sliced through the air as Su Ming tossed the long spear. It immediately caused the world to shake as it charged to the ground. The 500 battle souls surrounded the long spear and exuded a wave of murderous aura as well as killing intent that surged into the sky. As it charged forward, the spear plunged down towards the ground. From the distance, the spear that had gathered up all the power contained within the Undertaker's of Evil armor was a shocking sight that shook the sky and earth. It caused a violent gust of wind to stir up from the ground underneath, and it also made a sharp glare to appear within the eyes of the two incoming Sai Marshins. However, a strange smile appeared on the corners of their lips. The instant that long spear almost fell to the ground, a drastic change happened. Chapter 554 Confrontation. The Undertaker's of Evil spear was pointed towards a spot where a large number of grey-eyed corpses laid. During the instant the spear plunged down, the grey in their eyes swiftly disappeared, and as went away, their bodies started trembling, as if they were waking up from a dream. The clarity in those gazes and the confusion within the eyes of the men, women, elderly, and young when they saw the Undertaker's of Evil spear in the sky caused Su Ming to be able to see that these people had just woken up completely, as if they had been revived. There is no enmity between you and these people. In fact, they had never even spoken a single bad word of you, but you're going to kill them. Su Ming, if you attack, will you be at peace with yourself? You'll be experiencing a change of heart right here, and I'll be watching how you will go through this change of heart. If you kill so many innocent people, then where do your principles lie? Sai Marshin let out a long string of laughter, feeling extremely delighted. But if you aren't willing to kill these people and cause turmoil within yourself, then you will have to endure the endless amount of battles I will deliver to you with the great art of heartless Berserker Seed, Su Ming. Yet Bai Su doesn't have a lot of time left, you'll have to choose wisely. The other Sai Marshin also started laughing loudly. Su Ming remained silent. He watched the long spear falling to the ground with a bang, bringing up a wave of violet force that spread out in all directions, causing all the people who had just roused from their sleep to find their bodies shattering in a devastating manner. As the force spread out, more people woke up, and more people were crushed to pieces under that force. Their shrill screams of pain filled the air as they disappeared into nothingness. The screams of pain were still echoing in the air. Su Ming trembled. Not attacking others if they did nothing to provoke him had always been a principle he held close to his heart. This was also the principle he kept to as he traveled to this place. Yet now, this principle was shattered to pieces due to Sai Marshin's persecution. He bore no hatred towards these people, but with one throw of a spear, he killed all of them. It was just like what he experienced in Phantom Deus tribe, but the effects shook him even more this time. The event left him silent. Ma Xin's laughter echoed in the air. He did not want to just fight Su Ming through a simple battle of divine abilities. Not only did he want to make Su Ming lose in terms of his combat abilities, he also wanted to make him lose in terms of spirit. If he did not do this, he could not vent his hatred. If he did not do this, he could not truly destroy a person. If reincarnation existed in this world, then those who died by the undertakers of Evil Spear would never be reincarnated. They would forever be trapped in the spear and become its battle souls, surrounding it forever. If everything went by Ma Xin's original plan, then a complex seed would be planted deep within Su Ming's heart due to the collapse of his beliefs and principles. This seed would quickly grow and replace what made Su Ming who he was, turning into what would destroy his heart. However, there were some things in the world that Ma Xin could not predict. As Su Ming stood in midair, half of his hair gradually turned white and his body slowly shrank. A whirlwind swirled around his body, and his appearance became that of Destiny's. He did not turn completely into Destiny, but the moment his transformation was halfway through, he lifted his right hand and swung it towards the ground. That swing made Ma Xin momentarily stunned. Immediately, his pupils shrank, and the endless amount of corpses on the ground gathered together and their bodies became whole once again. The violet wave of impact spreading outwards also appeared once again in the land far off in the distance, but it no longer spread outwards. It tumbled backwards instead. The passage of time and everything that occurred during the previous moment started reversing at that instant. As time reversed, Su Ming looked at the ground, then at the unfamiliar faces that had just been revived until he found the expression he wanted. In the midst of their fear and confusion, looks of liberation appeared right at the moment they died. He saw those expressions of liberation when he executed the divine ability that allowed him to reverse time. He closed his eyes and lowered his right hand. The white hair covering half his head turned black once again. He no longer continued with his transformation to become Destiny. At that instant, his body returned to normal. When he opened his eyes, the ground remained as it did after the spear's impact swept through the land. It was as if the time reversal was a mere illusion, a dream, and that dream had just ended. Everything was as usual. Blood filled the air, and torn limbs could be found everywhere. As the violet wave of impact spread out, the screams of pain continued echoing in the air. However, Su Ming's heart was no longer shaken, because he could see the souls that were being absorbed into the undertakers of Evil Spear from the ground. As they gathered together to manifest into the people he killed, not a single hint of hatred could be seen on their faces, be it the men, the women, the elderly, or the young. Instead, there was gratitude, and when they were absorbed, they bowed towards Su Ming. Ma Xin also saw this. His expression immediately turned dark, and with a cold harumph, an even greater amount of corpses that existed in the region further down in the ground stood up with their eyes started flashing in a grey light. As they stood up, their bodies started changing as if they were melting, and all of them turned into Ma Xin. The limitless grey corpses in the 8th layer's world numbered to tens of thousands. Those who died due to Su Ming's spear throw were just a part of them. As more grey-eyed corpses turned into Ma Xin, they howled together and leaped into the sky, turning into numerous long arcs. These long arcs were all Ma Xin, and they were all rushing towards Su Ming. Su Ming, I'm shocked that you could gain such power during these 20 years. I originally thought that my serendipity was rare enough in this world, but I didn't expect you would possess this sort of luck as well. However, your luck and your serendipity will be reduced due to the battles I will deliver to you in this world. They will weaken as your will collapses, they will disappear as that murderous aura on you dissipates, and they will vanish as you become apathetic. I will first bring on you a battle that will destroy your luck. All the tens of thousands of my copies are all me. I will make you kill me over and over until you can no longer kill. Even if you don't want to, as you continue killing me, your rage will weaken, your willpower will collapse due to fatigue, your murderous aura will dissipate by large quantities before you even notice it, and by then, I wonder, will you still have the right to fight against me? The tens of thousands of Ma Xins said these words at the same time. Their voices fused together to turn into a roar containing an air of sovereignty that sounded like the might of heaven itself. It made Su Ming's pupils constrict. He had never underestimated Ma Xin, not in the past, and not now. Ma Xin was completely different from all the enemies he had encountered in the past. His battles against other people were just a simple fight to the death, but when it came to Sai Ma Xin, he would forever focus on the destruction of the soul. It was just like what he did when he planted the berserker seed in him and used Bai Su as a lead, and when he all the other things to throw Su Ming's heart into turmoil. All of these things just went to show how strange Sai Ma Xin was. His strangeness was shown even more prevalently through what he just said. Su Ming knew that if things continued like this, he would have to kill Sai Ma Xin tens of thousands of times, and no matter how deep his hatred towards him ran, it would gradually disappear during the slaughter, and eventually, all his hate and grudges would turn into mere empty words. They would no longer be engraved deep in his heart. If he could not keep his hatred deeply rooted in his heart, then it would be difficult for him to keep his will strong, and Su Ming would surely lose this battle. He wants to break my will and my spirit. Su Ming lifted his head and looked towards the tens of thousands of Sai Ma Xins charging towards him from all around the area with cold sneers on their faces, and suddenly, a cold smile curled up on his lips. Su Ming's current level of cultivation and his combat powers were definitely not due to some simple serendipity. Neither was it a rare serendipity which Sai Ma Xin believed he had received. His power was due to his will after the endless amount of reincarnations he went through in the Candle Dragon's world. If Sai Ma Xin had been there, perhaps he would have lost himself. Only Su Ming could survive it. He had desired to understand everything about himself. He had struggled in the midst of his confusion and endured silently while never giving up. His will had never been destroyed even after going through an endless amount of reincarnations, so how could his will disappear in this measly battle? Even when he had come face to face with the choices he had to make in his heart when he was in Heaven Gate and even had his principles destroyed by Sai Ma Xin, he had managed to persevere through it silently with his firm will. At that moment, Sai Ma Xin's words were still echoing in his ears, but the cold smile on Su Ming's lips gave away his killing intent. He moved, and without the Undertakers of evil armor as well as the spear, he started launching his attacks as he did when he was in the Candle Dragon's world, with one jab, one seize of the air, one fist, and one palm strike. The sky rumbled, and wherever Su Ming went, Sai Ma Xin's bodies would be destroyed. Su Ming's expression remained calm and no hint of change could be seen on his face. There was nothing else contained within that calm expression besides the desire to kill. Time slowly trickled by. Su Ming did not know how many people he had killed, but he did know that his will had not diminished. It had gathered together instead, and his hatred towards Sai Ma Xin did not dwindle away, but had instead grown stronger. Sai Ma Xin, since every single one of these is you, then the tens of thousands of deaths these copies go through will also mean that you have to suffer through tens of thousands of annihilations. If a person has been killed tens of thousands of times, will his will remain firm? We haven't seen each other for 20 years, and you still disappoint me, Su Ming stated flatly. If Sai Ma Xin wanted to destroy his will, then Su Ming would naturally retaliate. All the eyes of the endless amount of Sai Ma Xins began flickering with a gleam of light. Su Ming's words were like a sharp needle that had pierced right into Sai Ma Xin's heart. The act of destroying other people's wills had always been a double-edged blade. As he schemed against other people, he would also have to suffer the other party's retaliation. It was just like what Sai Ma Xin had to suffer now. He was trying to make Su Ming's will dissipate through the endless strings of battles, but with just a few words, Su Ming had figured out the true cost of what he was doing, and it made Sai Ma Xin's heart tremble. As he was shaken by his words, all the copies of him froze up, and during that instant, Su Ming spoke up once again. I can kill you tens of thousands of times, and I can continue killing you until I absolutely destroy you. Su Ming lifted his right hand, and once he held it in a fist, he hurled a punch straight towards the air beneath him. The power of all the berserker bones in his body was released, turning into a violent storm that swept through the area, causing a countless amount of Sai Ma Xins to shatter and tumble backwards. Chapter 555. A Different Brand of Arrogance. Rumbling sounds echoed through the world. At that moment, there were still nearly 10,000 Sai Ma Xins around Su Ming, but they did not continue charging forward. Instead, as they continued retreating, their bodies disappeared and turned into red threads that were quite similar to the red threads that had appeared on the people Su Ming had killed. They started gathering at a rapid speed at a spot 10,000 feet away. As expected of the arch-nemesis, I have waited for 20 years. You have the right for me to reveal my true body. When Sima Xin's voice rang out, the figure that was formed by the endless amount of threads twisted to reveal a white-robed Sima Xin who had the mark of 3 fingers at the center of his brows. He stood 10,000 feet away from Su Ming, and a muddled wave of power came from his body. His power felt muddled because Su Ming had noticed an endless amount of ripples signaling different kinds of cultivation levels. They were largely varied, but there were 3 waves that were as distinct as the sun itself. The first belonged to the great completion in the awakening realm. The second belonged to the pinnacle of the later stage of the Berserker soul realm. The third was the one that made Su Ming's pupils shrink, because it contained a hint of a power so strong that even he could not determine just how great it was. My life is endless, my power is boundless, my body exists everywhere, because the cultivation method I practice is the second god of Berserker's divine ability, the great art of heartless Berserker seed. An endless amount of people are training for me, and there is a limitless amount of people who will offer their lives to me. You! What right do you have to compete against me? The white-robed Sima Xin's voice was as soft and dark as ever, but the arrogance on his face could be seen clearly. I am the second god of Berserker's scion. I am the 4th god of Berserkers. What right do you have to fight against me? As Sima Xin spoke, he took a step forward, and the entire sky trembled violently. A gigantic footprint emerged in the sky with loud rumbling sounds, and it was several tens of thousands of feet big. It was as if a huge foot was stretching out in the sky and stepping down on Su Ming. All the Berserkers must tremble before the second god of Berserker's legacy and under my divine ability as the 4th god of Berserkers. I'd like to see just how many steps you will be able to withstand from the god of Berserker's art, 7 steps to heaven. As Sima Xin spoke with that dark and soft voice of his along with the arrogant expression on his face, his foot landed, and the world rumbled. The huge footprint looked as if it had gained physical form and shot out from the clouds to stretch into the air, covering a circular area of several tens of thousands of feet against Su Ming. It came down, rumbling in the air, and a large amount of space around Su Ming started breaking down. A destructive power surrounded the area. Su Ming lifted his head swiftly and looked at the foot coming down from the sky. A glint appeared in his eyes when he sensed Sima Xin's great confidence. He was sure that the source of that confidence came from the serendipity he had received from Freezing Sky Cave. Moreover, it looked like this serendipity was the second god of Berserker's inheritance. The legacy of the god of Berserkers ends at the 3rd. Even if you received the second's inheritance, it is just an inheritance. The instant the god of Berserker's gigantic foot formed by the first step sank down with a loud rumble, Su Ming lifted his right hand. Dark light shone in his hand, and the spiked club manifested on his palm. The instant he wrapped his fingers around it, the weapon swelled up endlessly. Su Ming lifted it up and swung it against the footprint sinking down towards him. No matter how strong the inheritance may be, it is still a path left behind by our ancestor. No matter how much you receive, it is merely similar to the second's. And the second had only received half of the first's inheritance. Su Ming smiled faintly. The other's arrogance could not be seen on his face, but the arrogance of his words was much greater than the arrogance Sima Xin showed on his face. Su Ming's arrogance came from within his heart. It lay within his experiences and came from the desire to walk down a path that belonged only to him. It was born from the heart that refused to be controlled by any form of inheritance but instead desired to become a powerful warrior that could control these inheritances. Sima Xin's arrogance was external. It lay within his serendipity and his thirst towards the second's power. He would not seek to control the inheritance, but would instead accept it passively. His was a heart that desired to be acknowledged by the inheritance. These 2 types of arrogance were completely different. Shocking, booming sounds reverberated in the air, and as Su Ming's voice traveled forth, his words landed in Sima Xin's ears. Su Ming's spiked club came into contact with the god of Berserker's first step. As booming sounds continued in the air, his body sank down and he was sent several hundreds of feet by that powerful rebound, but his eyes remained firm. As the booms went on, the god of Berserker's first footprint shattered, inch by inch, and exploded. Nonsense. If I can receive the second's inheritance, then it means that this is what I should have in my life. I'm destined to be the 4th god of Berserkers, and I'm fated to lead the Berserkers to unite the world. You are just a mere warrior among the berserkers. How could you talk about inheritances? Your crime is punishable by death. Sima Xin's pupils shrank, and with a cold sneer, he took 5 steps forward. Once he took those 5 steps, the world moved as if the ground was shaking and the sky was collapsing. 5 gigantic footprints sank down from the sky, and each of those footprints was larger than the last, and all of them charged towards Su Ming. At that moment, Sima Xin took another step forward and completed the final step for his god of berserkers' 7 steps. That one step immediately caused the world to turn pitch black. A foot that covered a large half of the sky sank down, and that scene looked as if the sky itself was sinking towards the ground. I'd like to see just how you will hope to fight against me under the 4th god of berserkers' 7 steps. Sima Xin's voice rumbled in the air. Su Ming's face was calm. The spiked club in his right hand, he swung it toward the sky once more. The club instantly grew to become several thousands of feet long, turning into a shocking sight to behold. Golden light shone from Su Ming's body, and he lifted the spiked club to ram it against the 5 footprints descending from the sky. Booming sounds immediately started reverberating madly in the air. The instant the spiked club touched the 5 feet, they started shattering one by one, but the weapon was also sent tumbling back as it trembled. However, when the spiked club was lifted up, Su Ming's body shot through the 5 collapsing feet and appeared in the sky, right next to the 7th footprint that covered most of the sky and was causing the sky to look as if it was collapsing. The instant Su Ming closed in, he clenched his right hand into a fist and let out a low growl towards the sky. Golden light flowed out of his body like a stream and gathered on his right hand. At that moment, an illusory shadow appeared behind Su Ming. That shadow did not belong to his nascent divinity, but in its indistinct form, it looked somewhat similar to the 3rd god of berserkers. That shadow also lifted his right hand and clenched his fist. Then, with Su Ming, he hurled his fist straight towards the foot in the sky. Loud rumbling sounds turned into a wave of impact that caused the ground to collapse and the sky to be torn apart. The foot that had covered half of the sky trembled and was torn to pieces. Su Ming was forced back. Blood trickled down the corners of his lips, but the firm resolution in his eyes only grew stronger, and the freezing glare within them turned colder. The instant Sima Xin took that 7th step, his face turned pale, and he coughed up a mouthful of blood. He was forced back several hundreds of feet backwards before he could finally regain his footing, and he glared at Su Ming. A large amount of cracks appeared when the sky was torn apart. Quite a number of spots shattered to reveal the murky darkness outside. No one had any idea where that darkness led to, but as the boundaries holding it away shattered, the aura of death spreading out of Su Ming's body grew thicker. Clearly, this place was incredibly close to bright young emptiness. The earth crumbled and shattered into pieces, revealing the gap that led to the 7th layer. Loud booming sounds echoed in the world. Clearly, it was unable to withstand this extreme fight between Su Ming and Sima Xin and was beginning to show signs of being destroyed. Once this place was ruined, then in the future, Heaven Gate would no longer possess the 8th or the 9th layer. Sima Xin's eyes sparkled and killing intent shone in his eyes. He originally wanted to destroy Su Ming's will, that was why he had made him suffer through all those trials, but he had been unable to weaken his will even in the slightest. Yet on the other hand, Sima Xin's own will was showing signs of weakening, especially from Su Ming's words regarding the inheritance. It had even shaken his heart, however, this was not the time for him to think too much. Sima Xin took a few steps back, then lifted his right hand to seize at the air. Immediately, a gigantic fan appeared in his palm. The fan looked as if it was formed by an endless amount of feathers, and light could be seen spilling out from it. It was clear at first sight that this was not an ordinary item. With the god of berserkers' treasured fan, I execute one of the 3 barren arts of heaven, earth, and man, heaven barrenness. While his soft voice traveled forth, he held the fan in his hand and swung it swiftly in Su Ming's direction. A loud, deafening sound left the broken sky once he swung that fan. Right before their eyes, the sky started shattering inch by inch, and the entirety of it turned pitch black. It was as if the boundary in the sky had been sent rolling backwards, and the fan had lifted the sky with its swing. The shattered fragments were fused with the power in the sky, and as the fan moved, they were lifted up and flung towards Su Ming. A strong sense of danger rose swiftly in Su Ming's heart. The fan had actually managed to destroy the sky and cause the fragments to turn into a power that could tear apart everything. The strength of that power gave Su-ming a strong hunch that even if he had 8/10 of all his bones in his body turned into berserker bones, it would still be hard for him to withstand this. He could not dodge it, neither could he hide from it. The only thing he could do was fight it. He would be able to fight against it if he turned into Destiny, but Sima Xin clearly had a lot of trump cards left, and if Su-ming turned into Destiny at that moment, then he would definitely be unable to kill Sima Xin within the time limit. Then, there would be no meaning to this battle. Light flickered in Su-ming's eyes. The instant the sky roared and shattered into pieces, he lifted his right hand and seized the air in the direction of the incoming sky. With that, a tempest was abruptly formed around Su-ming. The strength of that tempest instantly connected the sky and earth, turning into a whirlwind that would cause terror to rise within others. Sun Genesis. The instant those two words were spoken, the whirlwind started sweeping outwards with loud rumbling, crashing into the incoming Heaven Baroness art with a bang. The sight was incredibly startling from the distance. It was a sight of the sky rolling backwards, of a whirlwind rising into the sky, of a crash between the sky and the wind, of a clash between the fan and the wind berserker art. Lunar burial. In that whirlwind, Su-ming lifted one hand high above his head and the other stretched down below. Immediately, two whirlwinds appeared beyond his whirlwind. The newly appeared wind started spinning. A freezing chill filled the air, along with a wave of heat. As these two different temperatures intersected with each other, a circular area of hundreds of lees around Su-ming turned into the world that belonged to the wind. This was the method he had decided to use to fight against the incoming sky.